Here to promote Hong Kong, you lead a very big delegation of Hong Kong, shall I say even bigger than last year, if I remember right, in order to persuade people that Hong Kong is still a place that is attractive for investment and also for the international community. But not many, I would say, would hear directly earlier messages coming from you. What is it like to put yourself out there?
I would say that coming to a World Economic Forum at Davos has provided us with a very good platform in normal days to promote Hong Kong. But on this particular occasion, after 7 months of social unrest and with some media reporting, which I would say is not comprehensive enough, it is always good to have this first-hand opportunity to explain the Hong Kong situation. Tian Wei, you mentioned about how I could persuade people about confidence in Hong Kong. I am pleasantly surprised that many of the government leaders and also business leaders I met over these 2-3 days in Davos, they told me that they're all very aware of the unique strengths of Hong Kong. The rule of law, the independence of judiciary, the gateway function to the mainland of China, and also the Greater Bay Area, the Belt and Road initiatives, and that's why they all take a long-term view about Hong Kong. So when you take a long-term view about Hong Kong, you need not be too unduly worried about certain events that have taken place in recent months.
What do you mean by long-term?
Well, long-term means you are investing in a place where there is a good future. And under one country, two systems, and continue to enjoy our strategic advantages while having the support, I would say the full support of the central government, is one of that confidence booster for many investors.
You've been encountering, Madam Chief Executive, a lot of different things over the past 1 year. Even here at the World Economic Forum, we saw people came up to you and asked you, why didn't you quit? We also saw people ask you, why didn't you react earlier? So what are your answers?
Hong Kong has faced some unprecedented challenges in the past 7 months. I would say that the situation that we are facing, we have to handle, is something that we have never experienced before. So it is always very easy to comment and criticize whether we should have done this thing, whether we should have done that thing, and the timing and the intensity. But I would just say this, I stick to principles, because it is in that sort of situation of uncertainty that one should really stand firm on points of principle. And my points of principle are simple. One is one country, two systems, and the protection of all the rights and freedoms enshrined in the Basic Law. So I would not easily concede to demands which deviate from this very important principle. The second thing is the rule of law. Hong Kong is always proud of the rule of law, and the rule of law underlines Hong Kong's success. If you ask a business leader, he said that the first thing they look for in a place to consider investment is whether that place has a rule of law, whether if they end up with trouble, there is an impartial system to give them justice. The third element is, of course, to preserve the institutional strengths of Hong Kong. So for political demands that, to the extent of demanding that we should dissolve the Hong Kong police force, that is something that I will not concede, because that will bring very serious consequences for Hong Kong's law and order. So sometimes when people did not fully realize that in responding to political demands, we have to bear in mind those very important principles instead of just going for political expediency or making my life or the government's life easier. We will not do that, because that would be giving up the long-term interests of Hong Kong.
People have been noticed over the past 1 year, for example, during the unrest in Hong Kong, the central authorities in Beijing did not act in a very, very active way, but rather leave it to the Hong Kong HKSAR government to handle it. So how is that reflecting about the Beijing's understanding of one country, two systems? And what is exactly your understanding, Madam Chief Executive, of the one country, two systems?
Well, there is a very authoritative source to understand one country, two systems. and that is the remarks made by President Xi Jinping on the 1st of July 2017. When he came to Hong Kong, he presided over my swearing-in ceremony and made a very important speech. To give you this analogy, one country, two systems is a complete sort of complete arrangement. You cannot just take two systems on its own without bearing in mind the very importance of one country. So just like a tree, one country is the roots. So the roots have to be very deep and very strong before the two systems could flourish. So this means that we have to fully respect and uphold and insist on one country, but at the same time respect the two systems' differences. So it is only under that sort of very clear understanding that the one country, two systems principle could be implemented in an accurate and comprehensive manner.
Madam Chief Executive, if you look at some of the international media coverage, the young people on the street are being described as the martyrs or the so-called chosen generation. What do you make of these kinds of descriptions for those young people from Hong Kong, some of whom are even violent over the past few months? What do you make of the role of the media over the past few months in terms of presenting the facts and analyzing situations as they are?
As I said before, that has been a very extensive coverage of Hong Kong situation by the Western media. That is fine, but of course I expect coverage to be more objective and more accurate and more comprehensive.
They say to their standards, they already are.
Well, there's certainly room for different interpretations of that sort of reporting. But when one sees the degree of violence in some of these protests by rioters, I think we can readily describe them as rioters. If they are throwing petrol bombs at police, if they are burning up shops, if they are just hurling bricks at bystanders, or even setting people on fire, just because that particular person held a different view from the rioters, I would find it very unacceptable to describe them as freedom fighters or pro-democracy demonstrators. They're certainly well beyond that.
Many are concerned, Madam Chief Executive, about this generation of young people in Hong Kong. Some are very worried about what kinds of attitude they would have toward their homeland and also even about their future, about the world. What do you think can be the thing that you can do in order to help save their future?
Well, since taking office, I attach a lot of importance to nurturing young people. I gave them more opportunities to participate in decision-making in the government by bringing them onto government boards and committees. I actually set a target that 15% of the members on the government boards and committees should be young people under the age of 35. But the important thing is on national education. I think young people in Hong Kong should be nurtured to have that very stronger sense of national identity. And also civic responsibility. So this is something that we will continue to work at and work very hard at, because I don't think any society should give up on her young people, because young people are our future. If they do not see the world in the right way now, it is for us to help them.
What about Hong Kong's economy? Now you're committed already about reforms and providing more social support for the people in Hong Kong. How are we going to see those being realized? The time frame, particularly also you have to work with different forces in Hong Kong to make it come true. Now, earlier, Chief Executive did not manage to do many of those you promised earlier.
Well, actually, we were quite good in terms of delivering on initiatives to diversify Hong Kong's economy. We are going into innovation and technology, investing heavily in these projects, incubation, startups, in order to provide young people with more opportunities. We are working very closely with Guangdong to develop more youth entrepreneurial co-working spaces to give young people more opportunities to start their own businesses. But of course, there's always room for doing more. But what we now face is inevitably Hong Kong may have to go into a recession. So at times of recession, while we will continue to invest and grow the economy, we have to provide relief measures. And the government has already implemented 4 rounds of relief measures, incurring about 25 billion Hong Kong dollars. We'll continue to do that. And the purpose of these relief measures, one is to help the businesses and to preserve the jobs as much as possible. Because losing one's job could be very devastating for the individual and the family. The other is for the underprivileged, to help them to overcome the difficult situation.
Quick note, what kinds of recession, the number, do you know?
We are projecting a negative growth for 2019, although we have not actually announced it, but it is very likely to be a negative growth of about minus 1.3%. 2020, there are different projections by the corporations, but we will have to wait for the financial secretary to announce it in his budget the latter part of next month.
My final question for you, Madam Chief Executive, is that what about the financial stability of Hong Kong? And also, what about the status Hong Kong has been enjoying as a market economy? There were threats against all of this during the past few months of chaos in Hong Kong from outside. What do you make of all these challenges, if we could put it that way?
Well, actually, what has happened in the past 7 months has proven Hong Kong's resilience and robustness as far as the financial sector is concerned. We have not seen any problem in the banking sector, in the securities market, and in other financial services. Quite on the contrary, 2019 was a good year for our securities industry. We were again the world's #1 in terms of IPO funds raised. And we are rolling out other measures to grow Hong Kong's financial industry, which now accounts for 19.7% of Hong Kong's GDP. So that proves that Hong Kong is a very resilient global financial center. And this actually gives people the level of confidence in going into the future.
So you're not afraid of them?
I think we have proven that we can rise to the challenge.